If they can't see your worth while you're glowing for them, then walk away while you're still shining. You are not a second option. You are not an afterthought. You are the standard. And the moment they stop clapping when you win, that's your cue to exit. Because a queen who stays where she's not valued slowly forgets her crown. This is for every woman who ever loved too loudly in a room that was silent when she needed it the most. Today we talk about walking away, not to be cruel, but to choose you. There comes a time in every woman's life when silence becomes louder than words. When the people you thought would lift you watch you fall. When your effort is invisible, your loyalty unnoticed, and your love taken for granted. And in those moments, you have two choices: stay and shrink, or walk away and glow in your own light. Let me make this clear. Walking away doesn't mean you failed. It means you refuse to be small for people who couldn't grow with you. You see, a woman who walks away when she's not appreciated doesn't walk out empty. She walks out stronger, wiser, louder, and unbreakable. You are not a backup plan. Read that again. Let it sink in. Not just in your mind, but deep in your soul. You were not created to be an afterthought. You were not born to sit in the corner while someone else decides when you're finally good enough. You are not someone's maybe. You are not their safety net when their favorite options fail. You are the choice. The moment you start accepting less than that, you start burying your worth under someone else's indecision. Look around you. In every part of your life, you'll see this truth play out. Think about that friend who only calls you when they're lonely, when no one else answers. Notice how suddenly you become important when they need advice, or when they need help moving, or when they're heartbroken. But where are they when you need someone to check in, when you have your own bad day? That's not friendship. That's convenience. That's what backup looks like. And you deserve more. Or maybe it's that job you keep pouring your heart into, working late, doing more than what's required, staying loyal through chaos. But every time it's time for recognition, someone else's name gets called. They say, you're important, but when promotions come, you're overlooked. You tell yourself, next time. But how many next times will it take before you realize you were never the first pick? They've built their success on your silence. Your hard work deserves applause, not invisibility. Let's talk about relationships. That situationship you keep holding on to. That person who only texts you late at night or comes back whenever things fall apart with someone else. They know you're kind, they know you're forgiving, so they treat you like a revolving door, never choosing you fully, but never letting you go. And you, being the beautiful soul you are, keep hoping maybe this time they'll see your worth. But my love, hope without action from them is manipulation. If someone can't stand proud beside you in the light, they don't deserve to hold your hand in the dark. You weren't made to wait on the sidelines of someone else's growth, waiting for them to mature, waiting for them to heal, waiting for them to finally see what's been right in front of them. You are not a placeholder while they chase temporary thrills. You are not a soft space for broken people to land just to leave again once they feel whole. You are not a pit stop. You are a destination. Even in families, this shows up. The sibling that's always relied on you to fix everything but never says thank you. The parent that praises one child but only criticizes you. And yet, you keep showing up. hoping to earn something that should have been freely given. Appreciation. But let me tell you something. Just because you're used to being overlooked doesn't mean you're invisible. Your value doesn't decrease based on someone's failure to see it. And sometimes, the cruelest backup plan is the one you play for yourself. How many dreams have you put on pause? How many times have you said, I'll go back to school? You're overlooked. You tell yourself, next time. But how many next times will it take before you realize you were never the first pick? They've built their success on your silence. Your hard work deserves applause, not invisibility. Let's talk about relationships. That situationship you keep holding on to. That person who only texts you late at night or comes back whenever things fall apart with someone else. They know you're kind, they know you're forgiving, so they treat you like a revolving door, never choosing you fully, but never letting you go. And you, being the beautiful soul you are, keep hoping maybe this time they'll see your worth. But my love, hope without action from them is manipulation. If someone can't stand proud beside you in the light, they don't deserve to hold your hand in the dark. You weren't made to wait on the sidelines of someone else's growth, waiting for them to mature, waiting for them to heal, waiting for them to finally see what's been right in front. Respect is louder than love. You can say I love you 1,000 times, but if your actions echo disrespect, your words mean nothing. Love is not about how loud someone says they care. It's about how deeply they honor your presence when no one's watching. Because in the end, it's not the words that stay with us. It's how someone made us feel safe, valued, seen. Think about it. A man can tell a woman he loves her every morning. But if he constantly interrupts her when she speaks, dismisses her dreams, mocks her emotions, or flirts behind her back, what kind of love is that? That's not love, that's control wearing perfume. That's ego in a silk robe. Real love is gentle with your boundaries. Real love doesn't raise its voice to silence you. Real love listens, even when it disagrees. Let's take friendships. A friend may say they love you like a sister, but if they gossip about you when you're not in the room, that's not love. That's betrayal disguised as familiarity. Light just so they can shine. Sometimes we hold on to people who say they love us because we think love is enough. But you have to ask yourself, do they respect my dreams? Do they respect my time, my voice, my energy, my pain? Love may bring someone to you, but only respect will make them stay in the right way. Respect builds the foundation that love alone can't carry. Without it, love collapses under the weight of ego, pride, and control. You deserve the kind of love that looks you in the eyes when you speak, that celebrates your wins as if they were their own, that never makes you question your worth just because you're emotional, tired, or growing. You deserve love that honors your boundaries, not bends them. Love that doesn't need reminders to be kind. Love that is present, not just poetic. And if someone says they love you, but makes you feel less every time you're around them, listen to the silence between their words. Because love is only real when it comes with respect. And when someone respects you, they don't just say they love you. They prove it every single day. Your energy is expensive. Stop giving it on discount. You are not a vending machine of attention, kindness, patience, and strength for people who only show up when it's convenient. You are not a bottomless well for those who keep taking and taking, never pouring anything back into you. Your presence, your time, your soul, it costs something. And when you start giving it away too freely, people begin to believe it's cheap. Think about it. You wake up early, answer every message, check in on people who never. True parental love respects the child's growth, not just their obedience. You can love your child and still hurt them when you don't respect their voice. Romantic relationships especially confuse people into thinking that love alone is enough. It's not. A partner who loves you but talks down to you in front of others, questions your choices, belittles your job, jokes about your body, loves only the version of you they can dominate. That's not love, that's possession. Because love without respect is dangerous. It can look beautiful in the beginning and end up destroying your confidence piece by piece. Here's the hard truth. People will often use love to justify their behavior. I'm just jealous because I love you. I was angry because I care too much. But jealousy is not affection. Anger is not devotion. And care without respect is just emotional chaos. Don't confuse intensity for intimacy. Love doesn't make you feel small. It doesn't ask you to dim your check in on you. You offer your ears, your time, your heart to friends who only remember you when their world falls apart. And when you need someone, suddenly everyone's busy. That silence isn't random. It's because you taught them you'll always be there, even when they aren't. You became their emotional safety net while no one was catching you. Even in the workplace, you stay over time. You cover for others. You say a die. You cover for others. You say a die. You cover for others. You say a die. You cover for others. You take on tasks that aren't yours because you just want to help. And sure, you're appreciated at first, but over time your effort becomes expectation. You're no longer the helpful one. You're the responsible one. The one they depend on, not because they respect your boundaries, but because they know you'll never say no. And you get tired, burnt out, but you keep smiling. Because no one taught you that your energy is not an obligation. It's a gift. Look at your relationships. The ones where you lower your standards, ignore red flags, just to make it work. You shrink your needs. You pretend you're not hurt. You settle for being half chosen because you're scared of being alone. But let's be honest. Loneliness in a room full of people who don't value you feels worse than being alone in peace. Every time you silence your soul to be accepted, you offer your energy on clearance. But you're not a bargain bin version of love. You're the luxury brand. And luxury never begs to be wanted. Even with family, you've bent yourself in ways that feel unnatural. You keep peace at the dinner table, even when your spirit is screaming. You listen to criticism, you carry burdens, you sacrifice. Because that's just what family does. But at what cost? Who told you that love means constantly draining yourself to keep others comfortable? That's not love. That's martyrdom. And your soul wasn't built to bleed endlessly just to prove loyalty. Let's go deeper. Even in the way you treat yourself. You give discounts. You delay your everyone. Let people call you selfish if they want. Because if you don't honor your energy, no one else will. If you keep giving discounts, people will never know your full value. And you weren't born to be cheap. You were born to be rare. The kind of rare that doesn't go on sale because it doesn't have to. Silence speaks where words fail. It's in the moments when your voice shakes, but your soul stands still. When you're done explaining yourself, done justifying your worth, done begging to be heard, and you let your absence say what your presence couldn't. Because silence isn't weakness. It's not avoidance. Silence is the loudest boundary you can ever set in a world that thrives on noise. You don't have to scream to be powerful. Sometimes the most commanding thing you can do is walk away without a sound. Think about the arguments you've had, the endless conversations where you repeated the same truth, hoping they'd finally understand. You talked. You cried. You laid your heart bare. And they still didn't get it. But the day you stopped responding, the day you stopped chasing closure, that's the day your silence echoed louder than any sentence ever could. In relationships, silence is often the final act of self-respect, not because you stopped loving them, but because you started loving yourself more. You don't slam the door. You don't curse them out. You just go quiet. And that silence, it shakes them. Because suddenly, the person who always forgave, who always reached out, who always made peace, has nothing left to say. That's not pride. That's growth. That's a soul saying, I've spoken enough. Now it's time for you to hear the silence. In friendships too, who forgets your birthday, but remembers when they're low. You keep dreams for others. You say yes to things that deplete you. You overthink before doing anything bold. Telling yourself, maybe later, I'm not ready. It's not the right time. But let me ask you, when will it be the right time to finally choose yourself? The energy you give to doubting yourself is the same energy you could use to build your own empire. Every time you dim your light to keep others comfortable, you offer yourself on discount to a world that should be paying full price to witness your power. You weren't created to be everyone's emotional first aid kit. You weren't put here to constantly prove your worth to people who only clap when it benefits them. Your energy is sacred. It's magnetic. It's transformational. But it's not for everyone. Not everyone deserves to sit at your table just because they're hungry. Some people only show up to consume, never to contribute. So stop apologizing for protecting your peace. Stop explaining why you can't show up for showing up hoping they'll change. But the day you stop replying, the day you don't pick up the phone, that's when they'll feel the space you once filled. And maybe they'll finally realize your presence wasn't a guarantee, it was a gift. Even in family dynamics, silence holds power. Maybe you've grown up being the peacemaker, the one who stayed quiet to avoid fights, the one who nodded just to keep things smooth. But maturity teaches you that silence isn't always surrender. Sometimes it's strategy, sometimes it's protection. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to correct every false narrative. Let people misunderstand you. Let them talk. Your peace is not up for debate. At work, when you're constantly overlooked or dismissed, silence can be your declaration of value. Not passive silence, but intentional silence. When you stop over-explaining your ideas, when you stop tolerating condescension, when you walk away from the job that refuses to respect your worth, That's the kind of silence that opens bigger doors. Because not every opportunity is worth your energy. And sometimes the right move isn't speaking up, it's stepping out. Even with yourself, silence holds transformation. In the chaos of modern life, we're always connected, always scrolling, always consuming, but in silence, you hear your intuition. In silence, you finally meet your true self. That voice inside that's been whispering, "You're more than this." But you've been too distracted to listen. Silence is where you reconnect with your power, where you shed the noise of expectation and hear the raw truth of who you are. And yes, silence can be terrifying. It can feel like rejection, like being forgotten, but sometimes silence is the universe's way of clearing the path, of protecting you from things that would have broken you had you stayed. So don't fear the quiet. Don't rush to fill the void with noise. The people who truly care will feel the shift. The ones who truly see you will notice the silence, and they'll miss the sound of your soul. Silence is a language only the wise can understand. It doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, it just exists. And in that stillness, it commands attention. It demands reflection. It creates space for truth to emerge, unfiltered and pure. You don't always need to speak to be heard. Sometimes, the most powerful statement is the one you never say at all. When you walk away, you walk into yourself. Not away from love, not away from people, not away from life, but away from the noise, the chaos, the roles you were never meant to play. You walk away from being what they needed and step into becoming what you need. Because sometimes the most beautiful rebirth begins when you finally choose yourself over being chosen. There comes a moment when staying feels heavier than leaving. When you realize that your loyalty to others has been louder than your loyalty to your own soul. You've spent months, maybe years, trying to fit into places that made you shrink. You smiled through disrespect, stayed quiet through betrayal, and said it's okay when your heart screamed, it's not. And then one day, you stop. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started seeing. And when you see clearly, you can't unsee. That's when the walk begins. In a relationship that drains you, walking away is not giving up, it's waking up. You're not abandoning love, you're abandoning pain disguised as love. You're no longer watering a plant that never grew, no longer explaining yourself to someone who made confusion your normal. You stop arguing with a person who hears you but never listens. And as you walk away, something powerful happens. You stop asking, was I not enough? And start realizing, I was never meant to be treated like this. That shift is the beginning of walking into your worth. Think about friendships that once felt like home but slowly became hollow. The ones where you were always available, always understanding, always giving. But when you needed something, silence. When you celebrated, they were absent. When you grieved, they were too busy. You begin to see that you were not a friend. You were a therapist, a crutch, a convenience. So you walk away, not to be cruel, not to prove a point, but to protect your light. Because someone who only claps when it benefits them should never be in your front row. Even in your career, walking away can be your most courageous act. You spend years proving yourself in rooms where you're overlooked, undervalued, and underpaid. You stay because you believe loyalty will eventually pay off. But loyalty to a system that doesn't see you is self-sabotage. And the moment you decide to stop hustling for crumbs and start building your own table, that's when you walk into your power. That first step is terrifying, but that fear is your compass. Because nothing grows in comfort zones. Family dynamics too can become cages. You're told to obey, to respect, to stay quiet. But what happens when family becomes emotional blackmail? When love feels like pressure, you keep showing up to gatherings where your opinions are silenced, where your choices are mocked, where your growth makes them uncomfortable. And then, one day, you choose peace over tradition. You walk away from toxic ties, not because you don't love them, but because you refuse to keep losing yourself to keep the family picture perfect. That's not rebellion, that's self-rescue. Even internally, walking away means letting go of the version of yourself that survived so you can become the version that thrives. You walk away from guilt that was never yours, from the idea that you have to be everything to everyone, from the belief that your value is based on how much you do. You leave behind the old stories, the ones that said you're too loud, too emotional, too much. And you finally understand, your too much was just right for the life you were born to create. Because when you walk away from what no longer serves, you don't walk into loneliness. You walk into alignment, into clarity, into strength. You meet the you who's been buried beneath expectations, roles, and obligations. And she's fierce, she's focused, she's free. You don't owe explanations for choosing peace. You don't need permission to outgrow people, places, or patterns. You just need the courage to say, I'm done performing. It's time to come home to me. Queens don't beg. They evolve. They don't kneel in desperation for love, attention, or validation. They rise in silence, in dignity, in power. A queen knows that begging for someone to stay is like setting her crown at their feet and hoping they'll notice the sparkle. But she doesn't sparkle for validation. She shines because she knows who she is, with or without applause. In a relationship, a queen doesn't chase. She doesn't send message after message. She just shines because she knows who she is, with or without applause. In a relationship, a queen doesn't chase. She doesn't send message after message. She just, doesn't she hear? She doesn't see me. She doesn't see me asking, what did I do wrong? She doesn't shrink herself to be loved. She learns. She sees. And when someone shows her they don't value her, she doesn't write essays. She rewrites her story. You see, a queen remembers that love should never cost her self-respect. She won't plead for someone to see her worth, because if they needed to be convinced, they were never worthy of her to begin with. She will love deeply, yes, but she'll never love blindly. The moment her value is questioned, she evolves. Think about the workplace. You give your best, you show up early, you over-deliver, you stay silent while others get promoted. You keep thinking, if I just work harder, they'll notice. But you realize begging for recognition in a place that feeds off your silence will only drain you. So you evolve. You stop waiting. You stop hoping they'll see. You start building your brand, your voice, your platform. Queens don't wait for permission to be seen. They create opportunities that reflect their power. Because when you evolve, You stop asking for a seat. You start building your own throne. Even in friendships, the queen within knows that consistency is louder than words. When you keep texting someone who only replies when it's convenient, when you keep inviting someone who never shows up, you're not connecting, you're convincing. And queens don't convince. They communicate once. They express once. But if it takes constant begging to be considered, they bow out gracefully, not out of anger, but evolution. Family can be complicated. Sometimes the ones closest to you expect you to beg for love, for support, for approval. You owe us. We did so much for you. And yet you feel unseen, unheard, misunderstood. You sit quietly at dinners, swallowing your truth so you don't rock the boat. But queens don't sink for anyone's comfort. One day, she stops needing approval and starts choosing authenticity. She still loves, but with boundary. She evolves into the woman who doesn't beg for acceptance from the very people who taught her how to doubt herself. She writes her own definition of family, one rooted in respect, not obligation. Let's talk self-worth. Begging doesn't just happen in conversations, it happens in silence. When you stay in situations where you're crying behind smiles, when you lower your standards just to feel a little chosen, when you ignore your own intuition for temporary company, that is silent begging. And a queen learns to break that pattern. She doesn't scream, she reflects. She doesn't fight, she flourishes. She starts nourishing the parts of her that felt unworthy. And she doesn't wait for someone else to fix her crown, she straightens it herself. You'll see her in the gym, channeling her pain into strength. You'll see her starting businesses after heartbreaks. You'll see her walking alone into places where she was once broken. Because a queen knows her value was never tied to who stayed or who left. Her value lives in her resilience. She doesn't post long rants online. She doesn't seek revenge. She transforms. She heals. She levels up. She doesn't throw tantrums. She chooses herself. Over and over again. And that's the kind of woman who doesn't beg to be in anyone's life. That's the kind of woman who doesn't just survive, she evolves. And now, take a breath. Because if no one ever told you this before, let me be the one to say it. You are not hard to love. You are not asking for too much. You are simply asking the wrong people. Stop pouring oceans into people who wouldn't even give you a drop. This life you've been given, this one wild, precious life, is not meant to be spent begging at doors that were never meant to open for you. You are not a prisoner of your pain. You are the author of your power. And baby, it's time to write a new chapter. One where you rise like you were always meant to. You see, queens don't scream to be heard. They let their silence echo. They don't fight to be kept. They become the reason someone regrets ever letting them go. Because when you evolve, you don't have to prove anything. You become the proof. The glow, the calm after the storm. The woman who was never destroyed, just rebuilt. Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. Do you remember who said that? J.K. Rowling. A woman rejected by 12 publishers. Now the world reads her story. And just like that, Maybe your rejection is the redirection. Maybe what walked away from you, maybe losing them, was actually finding yourself. Because let me tell you, when you walk away from disrespect, from confusion, from being half loved, you don't lose. You win. You free up space for what truly belongs. You were never meant to stay in rooms where your name is only spoken in your absence. You were never meant to shrink just to fit into hearts that were too small to hold your greatness. Queens don't fit in. They reign with grace, with power, with purpose. And you, yes you, are not just passing through this world. You were born to shake it. You are not a footnote in someone else's story. You are the headline of your own. So stop waiting for closure. Sometimes the silence is the closure. Stop waiting for validation. The mirror already shows you who you are. And stop waiting for the right moment. This is, you are so, you are so, you are so, you are so, this is, you are so, you are so, woman, right now, right here, to say, I'm done begging, I'm done breaking, I'm done trying to prove I'm enough, because I am enough. Every woman listening to this, remember this deep in your bones. You don't chase, you attract. What is meant for you will never require you to lose yourself to keep it. Say it out loud if you need to. I align. I rise. I evolve. The most dangerous woman is not the one who argues, it's the one who withdraws, refocuses, rebuilds. So let them wonder what happened to you. Let them scroll through your life trying to figure out how you bloomed without them. Because the truth is, they weren't your loss. They were your lesson. And now you walk differently. You speak differently. You love yourself so fiercely that settling feels like betrayal. What they called too much is exactly what this world needs. Your fire, your voice, your depth, your light, they weren't ready. And that's not your burden to carry. Your job was never to make them stay. Your job is to stay true to yourself. Because real power is not in being wanted. It's in knowing you're whole, even when you're alone. So walk away, not with anger, but with elegance. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself right. This world doesn't need more women who beg. It needs more women who evolve. You are the virgin, you're the primary. It's not who you are, but who you're becoming. Women who know that being alone is not lonely, it's sacred. Women who turn their pain into power, their silence into strength, their rejection into redirection. Because in the end, you won't be remembered for how many times you were chosen. You'll be remembered for how fiercely you chose yourself. And that is how a queen moves.